So we are done with this. We understand like how you can go from one screen to other. Very simple. What I want to do is I'll get rid of this, body of this second screen. And what I want to do is I want to come back to my home screen, and before we navigate to this new second screen, what we want to do is we want to get the data. Now, how would we do that? It should again happen in our on pressed. Let us return to our web browser, and what we want to do is make an HTTP call in Flutter. Have the URL of our API which returns some data, but we want to make an HTTP call in Flutter. So there is a very simple cookbook by the Flutter team itself on how you can fetch and display data with Flutter, and it says add the HTTP package. What are these packages and how to find them? So in Flutter, a lot of the functionality is made available through packages which you can reuse in your Flutter application. All the Flutter packages can be accessed, or all the Dart packages and plugins, you can find them on pub.dev, which is like the official package repository. So we again know what package we want to add, which is the HTTP package, but you can also search for based on your use case, and you can also select the different platforms, the SDKs, and maybe find out what is the Flutter favorite or recommended package. So HTTP is our first choice, which is a package that basically lets you make API calls in Flutter, and they have also included like how can you use it, the different examples, installing, how do you install this, and have like pub points upvoted by different people on this. And you can also view the code for this particular package by going over to their GitHub repository, and if you run into something, you can create a new issue. So HTTP is the package we want to use. Now how to use this? So we'll copy this HTTP package, come down to our pubspec.yaml, which basically should contain all information of the dependencies as I had mentioned. So in this dependencies, I'll paste the HTTP package that I copied under this Cupertino icons. And now before I can use this, I'll have to save this file and run something called flutter pubget. So flutter pubget should run automatically, but if it doesn't, you can go over to your terminal and type in this command flutter pubget, and it should get the packages for you. So once this is done, it's still running. So it was successful, and once this is done, I can come back to my home screen inside the on pressed of this button where I want to make this API call. So here we have the using for this particular package. The first step is importing this package. So I can copy this line of code and import at the top of my file. Now you'll see that we are importing this particular package as HTTP. We can use HTTP to get the different functionality from this package. And now they have mentioned an example of how you can have a variable URL, which would have the URL you want to make this request to, and you'll get some response. You can wait on that response. Here they are making a post request. Now when you're posting something, you can make a http.post, but in our case, we want to get some data of this API. So we'll be making something called a get request. So quickly, I'll just copy this particular code and come back to the on pressed of my button and paste it here. I can format document and just wait for it. All right, now instead of this particular example, I want to use my API base URL that I have. So I can replace this with this particular URL. And instead of making a http.post, I want to make a http.get, which would not have this body parameter. It would just take in this URL and try to get data from it. And lastly, we'll have these print statement, which would print out the response status and the response body so that we can see what data we are getting. Now, there is also this another keyword, which is the await keyword. What is this? Now, if I'll keep my cursor on top of it, you'll see like the await expression can only be used in an async function. I'll have to make this function async. And what do I mean by that? So in Flutter, when there is a function that would, take time, now this data might take time to be retrieved. So we have to make this function async. That is, like, it should asynchronously complete while the other processes can get done. But we're using this await keyword here. Why? Because when we make this get request, we need to wait for it. Like while our API is being called, while we get this data and while we wait on this response, like we want to wait for this http.get to occur so that the response variable would get the data in it, and only after that would these statements be executed. If the await keyword was missing here, what would happen is, like, before this get request could complete, we will try to print out the response.status code and body, but by that time we would not have a response value completely inside this variable. So this would mean, like, we'll get a error which right now is saying, like, isn't defined, because we wouldn't have this future response until then, and we need to wait for this http get.complete before we can print out something of it. So that is what we are trying to do inside this particular function. And if I just hot reload my application, let us see if we are able to print out something. We are doing a hot reload because we just added a new Flutter package. So we want to take these files to this emulator that we have. So this is again a go to screen elevated button that we have. So if I'll click on it, I should get some response in my terminal. So I should get some response in my debug console, and you'll see, like, after we restarted our application, we got a response status code which is 200 and a response body, as mentioned here, response body, which was this particular message. So we were successfully able to get data of this API and we got it printed out to console.